He sat there quietly, pondering the words to use. I could tell he was anxious, as his eyes seemed wider as he watched me jot down some notes. He leaned forward in anticipation of what he would say, but I would have to be the one to break the silence. "Is everything okay, Jeff?" "It happened again," Jeff murmured, a look of defeat painted on his face. "A man in a silver tuxedo told me the hunt was back on. He just came up to me while I was walking down the street. He said the hunt began at 3 p.m. "Oddly specific, Jeff," I replied. "It's been almost 6 months since your last incident." "I know. It's been pretty peaceful. But now they are back." "Jeff, we've been over this. They were never there." I responded quickly, looking up at him with a brief smile before I began jotting down my notes again. "The police have never seen these men in silver tuxedos." "But I saw him, plain as day," Jeff exclaimed. They were just like the site said when I signed up for it." "Jeff, we've all tried to access the site you are referring to, but it doesn't exist." "It did exist before they deleted it." "No one deleted the site. You never signed up for a hunting game," I asserted. "Have you been doing your medicine regimen?" Jeff nodded. "Good." I thought the site was a joke," Jeff responded. A big troll, just to mess with people. But it had all sorts of consent forms that I signed. And then tuxedo men started following me." "Jeff, we've been over this," I responded sternly. "The site, the tuxedo men, and all the things don't exist. They were going to commit you before I intervened. You know that, right?" "I know, but this time it was different, Doc," Jeff yelled, with both anger and fear. I quickly started to jot down more notes. He was clearly getting worked up. I hadn't seen him like this since our initial visit. "They gave me a specific time this time." 3 p.m., correct? "Yes, 3 p.m. That's when they said the game would begin." "Well, Jeff, your appointment was at 2:30, and we are almost to 3 now." "So what you're going to do is make us wait till 3 p.m. and prove to me I am wrong?" I placed my notepad upside down on the table and leaned back into my chair, relaxing. Both our heads turned towards the clock. "So, how long have I been seeing you, Jeff?" I asked him to remind me. "About a year now," he replied. "So, those forms you supposedly signed, did any of them mention a consent form for psychological torture? I asked curiously. Or did you not read those either? The clock struck 3 p.m., and all that was left to be said was, "Jeff, it's been fun, but let the game begin." I deal with patients who like to have pretend problems, meaning that they come into my office with a new made-up problem. I have found a unique space within the therapy world, and there are people who like to pretend they have a certain problem, and I just play with it. I have this one woman called Linda, who is one of my longtime patients. She has a new pretend problem for each new day. Like on Monday, her pretend problem was that aliens had abducted her son, and I played along with it. Then on Tuesday, her pretend problem was that she accidentally killed someone, but the dead person had turned into a problem by coming back to life. Then on Wednesday, her new problem was now what she had experienced during the 1600s, and I helped her through that. Then her husband always interrupts the sessions because he always knows where Linda is, even when she hasn't told him. Linda always says how safe she is because her husband always knows where she is. Then we carry on with her session with her new made-up problem. Then on Thursday, Linda's new problem was now about her being stalked and disturbed by a ghost. I helped her through it, and she really enjoyed it. At the end of her session, her husband calls, and her husband always knows where Linda is. Linda says her husband makes her feel young because he tells her what time she needs to get home, just like her parents used to when she was young. Linda is so safe being married to her husband, and if she got abducted, he would know where she is. When Linda got stuck on some field trip, her husband knew where she was and got her home safe. When Linda was a little late coming home from shopping, her husband knew exactly which shop she was at. She is definitely very safe. Anyhow, another session she had with me with a new made-up problem. She bought a dog, but the dog then turned into a man. We talked about how it might be slavery when it turns into a man, but when the man turns back into a dog, she falls in love with it again, and it's not slavery anymore. Linda loves these made-up problems, and they can go very far, but at the end of each session, she knows they are just made up. I do love having these sessions with made-up problems. They're so much more fun than dealing with real problems. Then, one day, I heard Linda had been murdered by her husband for coming home late. When I look back on it all, with all the pretend problems Linda liked to have, she did actually have a real problem, which was her aggressive and controlling husband. She grinned Nina's big gap-toothed grin and sang along as we drove, just like the real Nina would do. She asked if I'd put on some West Side Story. I scrolled my Spotify. I didn't ask where her phone was. I knew the real Nina had it. Nina called me that morning from our parents' house up north. She asked why I was taking so long. I said I had to do all the dishes. She left. She laughed. She asked me to bring her sociology textbook. When I opened her door, Nina was standing there with her bags packed, ready to go. The Nina on the phone asked if I'd found it. The Nina in the door asked if something was the matter. I'd been in our apartment alone for 2 days. The other Nina brought her bags out to the car. She wore Nina's clothes. She looked like my sister. But my sister wasn't here. She rode passenger. She was in a good mood. Sometimes she spoke as if responding to things I hadn't said, or laughed at a joke I hadn't made. I tried not to stare, tried not to look at all. I considered if she was a demon, something meant to hurt me, or trick me into hurting myself. Dangerous to drive with a demon. I considered I was hallucinating. That was dangerous too. I considered leaving this Nina at the gas station and speeding on up to my real family. But I didn't. She came out with a donut and a smart water and made a strange non sequitur that I didn't reply to, though she laughed as if I had. "Did you pack your sociology textbook?" I asked after a while. "Did I? Oh shit. No, I forgot." Nina groaned. "It's alright. I can wing it from memory. Probably." "Do you remember the last couple days?" "Barely." She said this like a joke. I had a bad headache. We pulled up to our parents' house. My parents' house. I was sweating. My head was pounding, and I was nauseous. We carried our bags to the door. My mom, my dad, and Nina rushed out to greet me. The Nina behind me lit up with glee. "Hey, Mom, Hey, Dad. Hey. She stopped. The real Nina's mouth dropped open. The other Nina's mouth dropped too. Identically. Both of them froze. The real Nina started saying, "What the fuck?" And then the Nina beside me disappeared. Just gone. Her bags gone with her. An ozone smell lingered in the air. My head pounded and my stomach lurched, and I was sick all over the sidewalk. My parents and my real sister were suddenly sick too. Everyone slept through the next day. I'll never know what she was or where she came from, but I'll never forget that millisecond before she was gone. The way all her features seemed in that instant to stretch out like an image on a broken TV. She'd been so terrified. I check my reflection 3 times before leaving the bathroom. Touch the doorknob exactly twice. Count my steps to 7. Then start over. These patterns keep me tethered. Remind me I'm real. The accident happened on a Tuesday, or a Wednesday, or maybe it was Monday, and I'm remembering it wrong. The truck came from the left, or the right, or maybe both directions at once. I died. I lived. I did both simultaneously. Now I'm experiencing 3, no 7, no dozens of lives at once. In one, I'm still in the hospital. In another, I never left my apartment that day. In a third, I'm at my own funeral. Somehow both in the casket and standing beside it. Nothing works anymore. I touch a doorknob twice in one timeline, 3 times in another, continuously in a third until my hand bleeds. I count my steps, but the numbers multiply across realities. 7 becomes 49, becomes infinity. My therapist tells me grounding techniques help. But which therapist? The one who wears blue, or red, or green, or all colors that don't exist? Which version of me is sitting in which office, trying to convince which self they're real? I see my reflection, fragments across 1,000 mirrors. Each one moves slightly differently. Each one mouths different words. When I try to check if they're real, they all reach back, fingers pressing against glass from every possible angle. My mother calls to check on me. In one timeline, I answer. In another, I've been dead for weeks. In a third, I was never born. She asks if I'm taking my medication. I don't know how to tell her that I'm taking every dose and no doses, that I've always been medicated and never started and stopped years ago, all at once. The worst part isn't the splintering. It's not even the confusion. It's that one of these timelines must be real, must be the original. But I've lost the ability to tell which one. Each check spawns 100 more, an endless, futile spiral. Sometimes, in the rare moments when the timelines sync up, when all my selves are performing the same ritual at the same time, I feel a moment of clarity, but it shatters quickly. Reality fracturing like glass, each shard containing a different version of truth. I keep checking, keep counting, keep touching doorknobs and mirrors and the edges of my own dissolving consciousness. But I'm starting to think there is no real timeline anymore. Just the endless smear of me stretched across the void, forever trying to prove I exist.